Imagine you're walking through the foggy streets of Victorian London, the gaslights casting eerie shadows on the cobblestones. You hear a scream, sharp and desperate, cutting through the mist. You turn a corner and find a man clutching his hand, his face pale as death, stammering about a thumb that's vanished gone, as if it never existed. This isn't just a story of mystery. It's a puzzle that defies logic, a case so bizarre it could only land on the desk of Sherlock Holmes. Welcome to Sherlock Holmes and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb, a tale of intrigue, science, and the impossible, crafted to keep you glued to your seat. In this video, we're diving into a 10-chapter adventure, starting with a case that will test even Holmes' brilliant mind. So, grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's unravel this mystery together. Don't forget to like and subscribe to join us on this thrilling journey. It's a damp, chilly evening in the autumn of 1889, and London is a city alive with contrasts. The grand theatres of the West End glow with gaslight, while in the East End, narrow alleys reek of coal, smoke, and despair. The air is thick with the scent of wet wool, horse manure, and the faint Thames of the Thames. At 2-1B Baker Street, Sherlock Holmes, the world's only consulting detective, reclines in his worn leather armchair, his long fingers curled around a briarwood pipe. A haze of tobacco smoke swirls about his sharp, angular face, softening the intensity of his hawk-like eyes. I, Dr. John Watson, his friend and chronicler, sit at the cluttered desk, my pen scratching across my notebook as I try to capture Holmes' latest lecture on the chemical properties of tobacco, a subject he's pursued with the same he applies to a murder case. The fireplace crackles, casting flickering shadows across shelves stuffed with scientific journals, ordnance maps, and a vial of some dubious green liquid from a recent experiment. The room smells of pipe smoke, old books, and the faint burnt odor of Holmes' chemical misadventures. I'm just about to suggest we head to Simpson's for a quiet supper of roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, when a frantic pounding at the door shatters the calm dot. Mrs. Hudson, our long-suffering landlady, appears, her face pinched with concern. "A gentleman, Mr. Holmes," she says, and in a terrible state. She ushers in a man who looks as though he stumbled straight out of a nightmare. His name is Victor Hatherley, a hydraulic engineer, no older than 30, with a wiry build and a face as pale as the fog outside. His brown hair is disheveled, his tweed coat torn at the sleeve, and his hands tremble as he clutches a bloodied handkerchief wrapped around his left hand. Most shocking of all, where his left thumb should be, there's only a crude bandage, stained dark with dried blood. He collapses into the armchair I've just vacated, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps, and I fetch him a glass of brandy from Holmes' decanter. The amber liquid shakes in his hand as he takes a gulp, his eyes darting between us like a cornered animal's. Holmes leans forward, his pipe forgotten, his gaze fixed on Hatherley with the intensity of a predator sizing up its prey. "Speak." "Man," he says, his voice low and commanding, cutting through the room like a blade. "Tell me everything from the beginning. Omit nothing." Hatherley's story spills out in a torrent, his words stumbling over each other in his haste. He's a practical man, trained at the Royal School of Mines, with a reputation for precision in designing hydraulic systems for factories and docks. He's not one for ghost stories or wild fancies, which makes his tale all the more chilling. 2 days ago, a stranger contacted him, a man calling himself Colonel Lysander Stark. Stark was a tall, gaunt figure, with a face like carved bone and a faint German accent that set Hatherley's nerves on edge. He wore a black frock coat, immaculate, but severe and his eyes were cold, like chips of flint. Stark offered 50 guineas, an astronomical sum, 10 times Hatherley's usual feat, inspect a hydraulic press at a remote house in Berkshire. The job came with conditions. It had to be done at midnight, in absolute secrecy, and Hatherley was to ask no questions. The money was too good to refuse, and Hatherley, with a small practice and mounting debts, agreed. Though Stark's secretive manner made his stomach churn. The previous night, Hatherley boarded a late train to Afford, a sleepy village surrounded by rolling fields and hedgerows. At the station, Stark met him, his face half hidden in the shadow of a top hat. Without a word, he bundled Hatherley into a closed carriage, its windows shuttered, the interior smelling of damp leather and stale cigar smoke. The ride was long and silent, the only sounds the creak of the carriage and the rhythmic thud of hooves on the dirt road. Hatherley's unease grew with every mile, the darkness outside pressing against him like a living thing. When they finally stopped, Stark led him into a sprawling, dilapidated mansion, its stone facade crumbling, its windows boarded up like eyes sewn shut. The air inside was musty, thick with the scent of mildew and something metallic, almost like blood. Stark guided him through dim corridors, their footsteps echoing to a cavernous room dominated by a massive hydraulic press. Its iron frame loomed under the flickering gaslight. A mechanical beast with pistons as thick as a man's arm and valves polished to a sinister gleam. Stark explained, in his clipped, accented voice, that the press was used to compress fullers' earth, a clay used in textile manufacturing. But Hatherley, who designed presses for half a decade, knew something was wrong. The machine was oversized, its components built for a purpose far beyond pressing clay. The pistons were too robust, the pressure gauges calibrated for extreme force. Curiosity battled with his growing dread as he began his inspection, crawling beneath the press to examine its underbelly. The metal was cold against his hands, the air heavy with the smell of oil and iron. He noted irregularities, strange wear patterns, modifications that made no sense for industrial clay work. His mind raced with questions. What was this machine really for? Why the secrecy? Why the midnight hour? Then, without warning, the press roared to life. A deafening groan filled the room as the massive jaws descended, tons of steel moving with relentless force. Hatherley scrambled, his heart pounding, but not fast enough. The press caught his left hand, and in a blinding flash of pain, his thumb was gone severed, clean, as if swallowed by the machine. He screamed, the sound lost in the press's thunder, and stumbled back, blood pouring from his mangled hand. Stark's face twisted into a snarl, and a second figure emerged from the shadows, a burly man with a scarred face, his eyes glinting with malice. They lunged for him, but Hatherley, driven by pure terror, bolted through a side door. He crashed through a window, glass cutting into his arms, and tumbled into a thorny rose garden. Thorns tore at his clothes as he ran, the shouts of his pursuers fading into the night. He staggered through fields and lanes, wrapping his hand in his handkerchief, until he collapsed at a village inn, where a kindly ostler helped him board a train back to London. Now, in Holmes' sitting room, Hatherley finishes his tale, his voice hoarse, his brandy glass empty. "They meant to kill me, Mr. Holmes," he whispers, clutching his bandaged hand. "That precedes no ordinary machine. And my thumb, it's gone, as if it vanished into that infernal thing." Holmes listens, his fingers steepled, his eyes narrowed to slits. He fires questions like bullets, the exact dimensions of The press, the timbre of Stark's accent, the layout of the mansion's corridors. I watch, marveling at how Holmes' mind weaves a pattern from Hatherley's chaotic tale. "This is no common crime, Watson," he says, a spark of excitement in his voice. "A hydraulic press, a missing thumb, a secretive kernel. This is a puzzle of rare intricacy." He turns to Hatherley. "You'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow we go to Afford." I pour Hatherley another brandy, my own mind reeling. Holmes relights his pipe, the smoke curling like a question mark. "What do you make of it, Watson?" he asks, his tone deceptively casual. I suggest industrial sabotage, perhaps a rival engineer's plot, but Holmes shakes his head. "Think deeper," he says. "This press is not what it seems. It's the key to a larger design." The fire pops, the only sound in the quiet room. I feel the familiar thrill of a new case, one that promises danger, mystery, and answers that lie just out of reach. What is this machine hiding? Why would Stark risk murder to protect it? And how does a thumb simply vanish? We're just getting started, folks. In the next chapter, Holmes, Watson, and Hatherley will venture to the eerie mansion in Afford, where shadows hide secrets and danger waits. What do you think the press is really for? Share your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next installment of Sherlock, Holmes, and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb. Stay tuned for Chapter 2. The morning after Victor Hatherley's harrowing tale, the atmosphere in 221B Baker Street is charged with purpose. Dawn breaks over London, painting the sky a dull grey, the kind of colour that promises rain and secrets. Sherlock Holmes is already up, his lean frame pacing the cluttered sitting room, his eyes bright with the thrill of the chase. I, Dr. John Watson, am bleary-eyed from a night spent tending to Hatherley's wound, a clean severance, mercifully free of infection, though the engineer's face remains ashen from shock and pain. Mrs. Hudson, ever the saint, has prepared a hearty breakfast of eggs, bacon, and strong black coffee, but Holmes waves it away, his mind too consumed to bother with food. Hatherley, wrapped in a borrowed dressing gown, sips coffee with a trembling hand, his gaze fixed on Holmes as if the detective is his only tether to sanity. The engineer's story of the monstrous hydraulic press and the sinister Colonel Lysander Stark has ignited Holmes' curiosity, and I know from experience that when Holmes is intrigued, the world had better take notice. Holmes stops pacing and fixes Hatherley with a piercing stare. "You're certain of the location, Mr. Hatherley? Every detail matters, the station, the road, the house itself." Hatherley nods, his voice steadier now as he recounts the train to Afford, the darkened carriage, and the crumbling mansion hidden in the Berkshire countryside. Holmes listens, his fingers drumming a silent rhythm on the mantelpiece, his mind cataloguing every word. "We leave within the hour," he declares, pulling on his Inverness cape and deerstalker hat, transforming into the very image of a detective on the hunt. I grab my coat, and revolver. Holmes may scoff at my caution, but Hatherley's tale of pursuit and near murder has me on edge. The engineer hesitates, his bandaged hand twitching, but Holmes claps him on the shoulder. "Courage, man, you're under my protection now." We hail a hansom cab to Paddington Station, the streets of London bustling with early morning vendors and clerks hurrying to their offices. The air is damp, carrying the mingled scents of coal smoke, fresh bread from a nearby bakery, and the ever-present mud of the Thames. At the station, Holmes purchases 3 tickets to Afford, A small village about an hour's ride from the city. The platform is a chaotic swirl of steam, shouting porters, and the shrill whistle of departing trains. Hatherley, still pale, clutches his ticket like a lifeline, his eyes darting as if expecting Colonel Stark to emerge from the crowd. I try to reassure him with a smile, but my own nerves are taught Holmes' calm intensity is infectious. And I sense we're heading into something far darker than a simple engineering mishap. The train journey is a study in contrasts. Holmes sits by the window, his sharp profile silhouetted against the passing countryside, his eyes scanning the fields and hedgerows as if they might reveal the secrets of the case. Hatherley fidgets, recounting details of the press's design, its oversized pistons, its strange modifications, his engineer's mind unable to let go of the puzzle. I listen, jotting notes, my medical training warring with my curiosity. The press, Hatherley insists, was built for something far beyond compressing Fuller's earth. It was like a beast, he says, his voice low. The power in those gears. It could crush stone, maybe even metal. Holmes nods, his expression unreadable, but I catch the glint in his eye that means he's already forming a theory. We arrive at Afford Station just past noon, the platform deserted except for a lone porter sweeping leaves. The village is a sleepy cluster of thatched cottages and a single inn, its sign creaking in the wind. Holmes wastes no time, striding toward the station master, a ruddy-faced man with a thick beard. With his usual charm, Holmes extracts directions to the only large house in the area derelict manor known as Blackthorn Hall, about 2 miles out, surrounded by overgrown fields. Queer place, the station master mutters, eyeing us warily. No one's lived there proper in years. Holmes thanks him with a nod and leads us to a hired dog cart, a rickety contraption driven by a taciturn farmer who smells faintly of cider. The road to Blackthorn Hall is little more than a muddy track, flanked by gnarled trees and tangled brambles. The air grows colder as we approach, the sky darkening with the threat of rain. Hatherley points out landmarks from his midnight escape, the copse where he hid, the ditch where he stumbled. His voice trembles as he describes the mansion's looming silhouette, and I grip my revolver tighter, the weight reassuring in my pocket. Holmes, however, seems almost cheerful, his keen eyes taking in every detail, the ruts in the road, the angle of the hedgerows, even the mud on our carts. Wheels. Observe, Watson, he says, pointing to a set of fresh tire tracks, a heavy vehicle recently used. Our Colonel Stark is not as far away as he'd like us to think. Blackthorn Hall comes into view, a hulking mass of grey stone half swallowed by ivy. Its windows are boarded, its chimneys cold, and the grounds are a wilderness of weeds and thorns. The place feels abandoned, yet there's a tension in the air, like a held breath. Holmes leaps from the cart, his boots sinking into the mud, and motions for us to follow. Hatherley hesitates, his eyes fixed on the house, but Holmes' commanding presence pulls him forward. We approach the front door, its paint peeling, its knocker rusted. Holmes examines the lock, his fingers tracing faint scratches. Forced entry recently, he murmurs. Someone was in a hurry. Inside, the mansion is a maze of dust and shadows. The air is heavy with the smell of damp wood and something sharper, almost chemical. Holmes moves like a bloodhound, his lantern casting long beams across cracked plaster walls and warped floorboards. Hatherley leads us to the room with the hydraulic press, his steps faltering as we near it. The machine dominates the space, its iron frame gleaming faintly under our light, its pistons silent but menacing. Holmes circles it, his fingers brushing the metal, his face alight with fascination. "Remarkable," he says, almost to himself. "This is no ordinary press, Watson. Look at the wear patterns. These gears have been used for something precise, something repetitive." Hatherley nods, pointing to a series of strange grooves in the press's base. But before he can speak, a creak echoes from the corridor. We freeze. Holmes' hand signals for silence, his eyes scanning the darkness. Another creak, closer now, and the faint scuff of boots on wood. My heart pounds, my revolver heavy in my hand. Hatherley's breath catches, his face a mask of terror. Holmes, however, smiles a thin, dangerous smile. "It seems," he whispers, "our hosts have returned." The chapter closes on that tense note, the three of us standing in the shadow of the monstrous press, the air thick with the promise of danger. What lies in wait? Is Colonel Stark watching us even now? And what secrets does this machine hold? We'll find out in Chapter 3, where Holmes' investigation takes a perilous turn. What do you think is hiding in Blackthorn Hall? Drop your guesses in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next part of Sherlock Holmes and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb. Stay tuned. The air in Blackthorn Hall is thick with tension, the kind that makes your skin prickle and your pulse race. The creak of floorboards echoes again, closer now, a deliberate sound that cuts through the musty silence of the derelict mansion. Sherlock Holmes, his lantern casting a wavering glow across the cavernous room, stands beside the massive hydraulic press, his eyes gleaming with that peculiar mix of caution and excitement that I, Dr. John Watson, have come to recognize as the prelude to action. Victor Hatherley, the young engineer, is frozen beside me, his bandaged hand trembling, his breath shallow as he stares into the darkness beyond the press. My own hand rests on the revolver in my coat pocket, the cold metal grounding me as I strain to hear the next sound. The press looms behind us, its iron bulk a silent witness to the mystery we're unraveling, a machine that severed Hatherley's thumb and, if his tale is true, nearly claimed his life. Holmes' thin smile, sharp as a blade, tells me he's already 3 steps ahead, his mind weaving a net to catch whoever or whatever lurks in the shadows. Holmes raises a finger to his lips, signaling silence, and gestures for us to move toward the wall, away from the open doorway. His movements are fluid, almost cat-like, as he extinguishes the lantern, plunging us into near darkness. The only light now comes from a sliver of grey filtering through a boarded window, barely enough to outline the press's menacing silhouette. "Stay close," Holmes whispers, his voice a low murmur that carries the weight of command. Hatherley nods, his eyes wide with fear, while I grip my revolver tighter, my military instincts kicking in. The creaking stops, replaced by a soft shuffle, like someone trying to move stealthily but betraying their presence on the warped floorboards. Holmes' head tilts, his senses attuned to every nuance of sound, and I marvel at how he can find clarity in such chaos. The shuffle grows louder, and now I hear a faint metallic clink, like a tool tapping against iron. Holmes' eyes narrow, and he points toward a narrow corridor leading off the press room. "They're circling us," he murmurs, his voice calm but edged with urgency. "Watson, your revolver, keep it ready, but do not fire unless I give the word." I nod, my heart pounding, as Hatherley presses himself against the wall, his breath coming in short gasps. The corridor is a black tunnel, its walls streaked with damp, its air heavy with the same chemical tang we noticed earlier, sharp, almost acrid, like burnt metal or something more sinister. Holmes creeps forward, his boots silent on the floor, and we follow, Hatherley clinging to my arm like a man drowning. As we edge into the corridor, Holmes pauses, his hand brushing the wall. He kneels, examining the floor, and even in the dim light, I see his fingers trace a series of faint scratches of something heavy being dragged, perhaps a crate or a machine part. Recent, he whispers, and deliberate. This house is not as abandoned as it seems. Before I can respond, a shadow flickers at the far end of the corridor, a fleeting shape that vanishes around a corner. Hatherley stifles a gasp, and Holmes' hand shoots up, silencing him. "Patience," he says, his voice a thread of steel. "Our quarry is near, but we must not startle them." We move deeper into the maze of Blackthorn Hall, the corridors twisting like the veins of some ancient beast. The walls are lined with peeling wallpaper, once grand but now curling like dead skin, and the air grows colder, the chemical smell stronger. Holmes pauses at a junction, his head cocked, listening. A low hum, almost imperceptible, vibrates through the floor, a mechanical sound, like the pulse of a distant engine. The press. I whisper, but Holmes shakes his head. "Something else," he says. "Something alive." Hatherley's eyes widen, and I feel a chill that has nothing to do with the damp. What could be running in this forsaken place? And why? Holmes leads us toward the hum, his steps measured, his senses alert. We pass a series of locked doors, their handles rusted, their wood splintered, but one door stands ajar, a sliver of faint light spilling out. Holmes approaches, his hand hovering over the knob, and peers inside. I catch a glimpse of a cluttered room, tables strewn with papers, glass vials, and strange metal contraptions that gleam like surgical tools. The hum is louder here, coming from a corner where a small machine, no larger than a sewing box, whirs softly, its gears spinning with a hypnotic rhythm. Holmes' eyes light up, and he steps inside, motioning for us to follow. The room is a workshop, its walls lined with shelves of chemicals and tools, its air thick with the smell of oil and something sharp as sulfur perhaps, or acid. And Hatherley gasps, pointing to a diagram pinned to the wall, a detailed schematic of the hydraulic press, annotated in a spidery hand with measurements and cryptic symbols. "That's it," he whispers. "That's the machine that took my thumb." Holmes studies the diagram, his fingers tracing the lines, his brow furrowed. "This is no Fuller's earth press," he says, his voice low. "This is designed for precision forging metal, not clay. And these modifications," he trails off, his eyes flicking to the small machine in the corner. "Watson, Hatherley, look at this." The machine is a compact marvel, its casing etched with intricate designs, its gears moving in perfect sync. A small crucible sits beside it, containing a silvery residue that catches the light. Holmes kneels, sniffing the air, and his expression hardens. "This is a smelting device," he says, "for refining metal, possibly a rare alloy." Hatherley shakes his head, confused. But why hide it here? Why the secrecy? Holmes' smile is grim. "Because, my dear Hatherley, some metals are worth more than gold and worth killing." Before we can process this, a loud clang echoes from the press room, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, coming our way. Holmes spins, his lantern relit, casting wild shadows on the walls. "We've been found," he says, his voice calm but urgent. "Watson, your revolver." Hatherley Stay behind me. I draw my weapon, my hand steady despite the racing of my heart. Hatherley clutches the schematic, his face pale but resolute. The footsteps grow louder, and a figure appears in the doorway, a tall, gaunt man with a face like carved bone and eyes like flint. Colonel Lysander Stark. "Mr. Holmes," Stark says, his German accent thick, his voice cold as ice. "You are meddling in affairs beyond your understanding." Holmes steps forward, his lantern held high, his expression unyielding. "On the contrary, Colonel," he replies, "I'm beginning to understand quite well." The tension crackles like a storm about to break, and I know we're on the edge of something dangerous, perhaps deadly. That's where we leave Chapter 3. With Holmes facing off against the sinister Colonel Stark in the heart of Blackthorn Hall. What is Stark hiding? What's the true purpose of that press? And will we make it out of this encounter alive? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter of Sherlock Holmes and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb. Chapter 4 is coming, and the stakes are higher than ever. The air in the cluttered workshop of Blackthorn Hall is suffocating, thick with the acrid temps of chemicals and the electric tension of an impending storm. Colonel Lysander Stark stands in the doorway, his gaunt frame blocking the dim light from the corridor, his flint-grey eyes locked on Sherlock Holmes. His presence is like a cold wind, chilling the already damp room. I, Dr. John Watson, grip my revolver, my knuckles white, my heart thudding against my ribs. Victor Hatherley, the wounded engineer, clutches the schematic of the hydraulic press, his bandaged hand trembling as he presses himself against the wall, his eyes wide with terror. Holmes, however, stands unruffled, his lantern casting a steady glow across his sharp features, his thin smile a challenge. The small smelting machine in the corner hums softly, its gears a mocking counterpoint to the silence between us. Stark's words, "You are meddling in affairs beyond your understanding," hang in the air, a threat wrapped in ice. Holmes' reply, calm and cutting, still echoes in my mind. "On the contrary, Colonel, I'm beginning to understand quite well." Stark's lips curl into a sneer, but his eyes betray a flicker of unease. He steps into the room, his boots clicking on the warped floorboards, his long black coat sweeping behind him like a raven's wings. "You are a persistent man, Mr. Holmes," he says, his German accent sharpening each syllable. "But persistence can be dangerous." His hand rests casually on his hip, but I catch the glint of metal beneath his coat, a revolver, perhaps, or something worse. Holmes doesn't flinch. "Danger is my trade, Colonel," he says, his voice light but laced with steel. "And secrets are my currency. Tell me, what is so valuable about this press that you'd risk murder to protect it?" Stark's face hardens, his jaw tightening. For a moment, I think he might lunge, but he remains still, his gaze flicking to the smelting machine and the schematic in Hatherley's hands. "You know nothing," he spits, but there's a tremor in his voice, a crack in his icy facade. Holmes steps closer, his lantern illuminating the cluttered tables strewn with vials, tools, and scraps of metal. "On the contrary," he says, gesturing to the smelting device, "this machine refines a rare alloy, does it not? Something far more valuable than Fuller's earth. And that press," he nods toward the corridor leading to the press room, "is designed to forge it into precise shapes. Shapes, I suspect, that have nothing to do with industry and everything to do with crime." Hatherley gasps, his eyes darting between Holmes and Stark. "An alloy," he stammers, But why hide it here? Why attack me? Stark's sneer returns, but before he can answer, a second figure emerges from the shadows, a burly man with a scarred face, his eyes glinting with menace. It's the accomplice Hatherley described, the one who chased him through the night. He carries a heavy wrench, its head stained with rust or something darker. My grip on the revolver tightens, but Holmes raises a hand, signaling me to hold. 2 against 3, he says, his tone almost cheerful. Hardly fair odds, Colonel. Perhaps you'd care to explain before this becomes unpleasant. Stark's eyes narrow, calculating. You're a clever man, Holmes, he says, but cleverness won't save you. Leave now, and I might let you walk away. Holmes laughs, a sharp, mirthless sound that echoes in the room. I never walk away from a puzzle, Colonel, and this one is far too intriguing. He steps toward the smelting machine, his fingers brushing the crucible with its silvery residue. This alloy, he continues, is it silver, platinum, or something rarer still, something worth killing a man over? Stark's composure cracks, his hand twitching toward his coat. I raise my revolver, my voice steady despite my racing. Pulse, don't move, Colonel, I warn. I'm a fair shot, and I don't miss. For a moment, the room is a tableau of tension. Holmes by the machine, his eyes locked on Stark. Hatherley clutching the schematic, his face pale. The scarred accomplice gripping his wrench. And me, revolver trained on Stark's chest. Then, with a suddenness that catches us off guard, Stark lunges for a lever on the wall. A low rumble shakes. The floor and the hum of the smelting machine grows louder, joined by a deeper, more ominous sound, the hydraulic press roaring to life in the next room. You'll regret this, Holmes, Stark snarls, darting toward the corridor. His accomplice swings the wrench at Holmes, who ducks with the agility of a fencer, grabbing a metal rod from the table to parry the blow. Watson, after Stark. Holmes shouts, grappling with the scarred man. I hesitate, torn between helping Holmes and pursuing the Colonel, but Hatherley's cry, he's getting away, spurs me into action. I sprint after Stark, my boots pounding on the floorboards. Hatherley stumbling behind me. The corridor is a blur of shadows, the rumble of the press growing louder, its vibrations rattling the walls. Stark's black coat flutters ahead, a wraith in the darkness, as he ducks into the press room. I burst in after him, revolver raised, and find him standing by the massive machine, its jaws grinding with terrifying force. The air is thick with the smell of oil and hot metal, and the press's gears scream like a living thing. Stop, Stark, I shout, my voice barely audible over the din. He turns, his face twisted with fury, a pistol now in his hand. Too late, Doctor, he says, aiming at me. But before he can fire, Hatherley, with a courage I didn't expect, hurls the schematic at Stark's face. The papers flutter, distracting him for a split second, and I tackle him to the ground, my revolver skittering across the floor. We struggle, his wiry strength surprising, but my military training holds. I pin him down, my knee on his chest. As Hatherley scrambles to retrieve my gun, the press continues its relentless grinding, and I realize with a chill that Stark was trying to destroy something, perhaps evidence hidden in the machine itself. Holmes appears in the doorway, the scarred accomplice slumped behind him, groaning and clutching his head. Well done, Watson, Holmes says, his voice calm despite the chaos. He strides to the press, examining its controls, and with a deft movement shuts it down. The silence is deafening, broken only by Stark's ragged breathing beneath me. Holmes kneels beside the press, his fingers tracing the grooves happily. Noted earlier, these marks, he says, are from molds intricate, precise molds. This press is forging something small, something valuable. He turns to Stark, his eyes cold. Counterfeit coins, perhaps, or something even more audacious. Stark says nothing, his lips pressed into a thin line, but his eyes burn with defiance. Holmes stands, brushing dust from his coat. "We'll have answers soon enough," he says. "Watson, secure our friend Hatherley. Help me search this room." As I bind Stark's wrists with a length of cord from the workshop, Holmes and Hatherley comb through the press room, uncovering a hidden compartment beneath the machine. Inside is a small, locked box, its surface etched with the same intricate designs as the smelting machine. Holmes' eyes gleam. "The key to our puzzle," he murmurs, pocketing the box. "But we're not safe yet." The chapter ends with Stark subdued, the press silent, and a new clue in hand, but the danger is far from over. What's in the box? What was Stark forging in this hidden lair? And are there more enemies lurking in Blackthorn Hall? Drop your theories in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 5 of Sherlock Holmes and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb. The mystery deepens, and we're not done yet. The press room in Blackthorn Hall feels like a tomb. The silence, heavy after the hydraulic press's roar, fades into nothingness. The air is thick with the scent of oil, metal, and the faint chemical temps that lingers from the workshop. Sherlock Holmes stands by the massive press, his lean frame silhouetted against the flickering light of his lantern, the small intricacism, a locked box etched with intricate designs, its weight promising secrets that could unravel the mystery of Colonel Lysander Stark and his sinister operation. I, Dr. John Watson, stand guard over the subdued colonel, my knees still pressing into his back as he lies bound on the dusty floor, his flint-grey eyes burning with silent fury. Victor Hatherley, the wounded engineer, hovers nearby, his bandaged hand trembling as he clutches my retrieved revolver, his face a mix of fear and determination. The scarred accomplice groans in the corridor, still dazed from Holmes' deft counterattack. The tension in the room is palpable, like a coiled spring. And I know we're far from safe in this crumbling mansion, where every shadow seems to whisper. Danger. Holmes pockets the mysterious box, his fingers brushing its etched surface with a reverence that tells me he believes it holds the key to this case. "Watson," he says, his voice calm but urgent, "we must move quickly. This place is a powder keg, and Stark's allies may not be far." I nod, tightening the cord around Stark's wrists, ensuring he can't break free. His silence is unnerving, his defiance a stark contrast to Hatherley's nervous energy. Holmes gestures for Hatherley to follow as he moves to a corner of the press room where the hidden compartment yielded the box. He kneels again, examining the press's base, his lantern casting eerie shadows across the grooves and molds we noticed earlier. "These are not for coins," he murmurs, almost to himself, his fingers tracing the intricate patterns. "Too small, too precise. These are for something far more valuable, perhaps components for a weapon or a machine of great significance." Hatherley, despite his fear, leans closer, his engineer's curiosity piqued. "Components?" he asks, his voice hoarse. "For what?" Holmes doesn't answer immediately, his mind racing ahead, as it always does. Instead, he stands and motions us toward the corridor. "We'll find out soon enough," he says, his tone clipped. "But first, We need a safer place to examine this. He holds up the locked box, its metallic surface catching the light, its designs suggesting a craftsmanship beyond ordinary industry. I haul Stark to his feet, my revolver now back in my hand, and we move cautiously through the dark corridors of Blackthorn Hall, the creaking floorboards and distant hum of machinery keeping my nerves on edge. Hatherley follows, clutching the schematic from the workshop, his eyes darting to every shadow as if expecting another attack. We retrace our steps to the main hall, where the air is colder, the boarded windows letting in slivers of grey light. Holmes pauses by a shattered table, its surface covered in dust and cobwebs, and sets the box down. This, he says, is no ordinary lock. He produces a small set of picks from his coat pocket tools. I've seen him use to bypass everything from padlocks to safe sand sets to work. His fingers move with the precision of a surgeon, probing the lock's mechanism while I keep Stark at a distance, my revolver trained on him. The Colonel's silence is unnerving, his eyes tracking Holmes' every move, as if waiting for a chance to strike. Hatherley, meanwhile, studies the schematic, muttering about the press's specifications. The pressure capacity, he says, it's calibrated for extreme force, far beyond what's needed for clay. It could shape metal into forms smaller than a farthing. Holmes' pick clicks, and the box springs open with a soft snap. Inside, nestled in a velvet lining, are a dozen small, gleaming, object-intricate metal components, each no larger than a shilling, their surfaces etched with fine lines and grooves. They're not coins, nor machine parts in the usual sense, but something else entirely. Holmes lifts one, holding it to the light, his eyes narrowing. These are components for a precision instrument, he says, his voice low with awe. Possibly a detonator or a timing mechanism. The alloy likely a blend of platinum and something rarer, explains the smelting machine in the workshop. Hatherley gasps, his engineer's mind piecing it together. A weapon, he asks, his voice trembling. Holmes' expression is grim. Or part of one. Something worth killing for. I feel a chill that has nothing to do with the damp air. Stark's operation, hidden in this forsaken manor, is no mere counterfeiting scheme. It's something far more dangerous, perhaps tied to international intrigue or sabotage. I glance at Stark, whose face remains impassive, though a muscle twitches in his jaw. "Who are you working for, Colonel?" I demand, pressing the revolver closer. He meets my gaze, his voice cold as ice. "You'll find no answers from me. Doctor, you're in deeper waters than you know." Holmes snorts, slipping the components back into the box. "We'll see about that," he says, locking it again. "Scotland Yard will be most interested in this, before we can move further." A distant crash echoes through the whole glass, shattering, followed by the thud of boots. Holmes' head snaps up, his lantern swinging toward the sound. "We've overstayed our welcome," he says, grabbing the box and motioning for us to move. I push Stark forward, my revolver at his back, while Hatherley scrambles to keep up, the schematic crumpled in his good hand. We head for the rear of the house, where a servant's exit might offer escape. The corridors are a labyrinth, their walls closing in as the sounds of pursuit grow louder. Multiple voices now, shouting in a language I can't place, possibly German. Holmes leads with unerring instinct, navigating the twists and turns until we reach a rusted door leading to the overgrown garden where Hatherley escaped the night before. We burst into the open, the air sharp with the scent of wet earth and decaying roses. The dog cart we hired waits nearby, its driver dozing, but Holmes shakes him awake with a sharp command. "To the station, now." he orders, shoving Stark into the cart. I climb in beside him, my revolver steady, while Hatherley squeezes in, clutching the box and schematic. The cart lurches forward, the horse's hooves pounding the muddy track as shouts echo from the house. Holmes glances back, his eyes scanning the darkness. "They'll be after us," he says, his voice calm but urgent. "But we have what they want and they'll do anything to get it back." As the cart rattles toward Ayford Station, I feel the weight of the box in Holmes' hands, its contents a mystery that could shake the foundations of more than just this case. What are these components? Who is Stark working for? And how far will they go to reclaim their secrets? The answers lie ahead, but for now, we're racing against time. The Berkshire countryside blurring past as danger closes in. That's the end of Chapter 5. Folks, with Holmes, Watson, and Hatherley on the run with a box of mysterious components and enemies hot on their trail. What do you think these parts are for? A weapon, a machine, or something even wilder? Drop your guesses in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 6 of Sherlock Holmes and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb. The chase is on, and the stakes are climbing. The dog cart rattles along the muddy track from Blackthorn Hall, its wheels creaking as the horse strains against the reins, urged on by the driver's frantic whip. The Berkshire countryside stretches around us, a patchwork of dark fields and gnarled trees, shrouded in a mist that clings to the ground like a living thing. I, Dr. John Watson, sit tensely in the cart, my revolver pressed against Colonel Lysander Stark's side, his wrists bound tightly with cord. His gaunt face is a mask of defiance, his flint-grey eyes fixed on the road ahead, betraying nothing. Victor Hatherley huddles beside me, clutching the locked box of mysterious metal components and the crumpled schematic of the hydraulic press, his bandaged hand trembling with a mix of fear and exhaustion. Sherlock Holmes sits opposite, his lean frame taut with alertness, the small etched box in his hands as he scans the horizon for signs of pursuit. The air is sharp with the scent of damp earth, horse sweat, and the faint metallic temps that seems to follow us from the mansion. The shouts from Blackthorn Hall still echo in my ears, and I know we're not out of danger yet. Holmes leans forward, his voice low but commanding. "Faster, man." He urges the driver, a grizzled farmer who mutters under his breath but cracks. The whip again, the cart jolts, nearly throwing us off balance, and Hatherley grips the box tighter, his eyes darting to the shadows beyond the hedgerows. "They're coming, aren't they?" he whispers, his voice barely audible over the clatter of hooves. Holmes nods, his gaze fixed on a faint glow in the distant lanterns, perhaps, or the headlights of a pursuing vehicle. "They want this," he says, tapping the box, "and they'll stop at nothing to get it." Stark shifts slightly, and I jab the revolver harder into his ribs. "Not a move, Colonel," I warn, my military instincts keeping my hand steady despite the pounding. Of my heart, the road to Ayford Station is treacherous, winding through dense copses and over uneven ground slick with mud. The mist thickens, curling around the cart like ghostly fingers, and the driver curses as the horse stumbles. Holmes' eyes never leave the horizon, his mind racing as he pieces together the puzzle. "Those components," he says, "almost two, himself, are part of a larger designer mechanism requiring precision and secrecy. A detonator, perhaps, or a component for a device of international consequence." Hatherley's face pales further, if that's possible. "International," he stammers. "You mean espionage?" Holmes' smile is grim. "Precisely, Mr. Hatherley. Your thumb was a small price to pay for stumbling onto their secret. A sudden shout from behind snaps us to attention. Through the mist, I catch the glint of metal carriage, moving fast, its horses driven to a gallop. Two figures are visible, one wielding a lantern, the other a rifle that catches the light. Holmes, I call, my voice tight. He glances back, his expression unperturbed. Hold steady, Watson, he says. We're nearly at the station, but the pursuing carriage is gaining, its wheels throwing up mud, its horses snorting with effort. The driver looks back, his face ashen. They'll catch us afore we reach Afford, he cries. Holmes leans toward him, his voice calm but firm. Keep to the left fork, ahead it's narrower, harder for them to follow. The cart veers left, the wheels skidding as we plunge into a tighter path flanked by overgrown brambles. The thorns scrape the cart's sides, and Hatherley yelps as a branch catches his sleeve. Stark remains silent, but his eyes flicker with calculation as if waiting for his moment. I tighten my grip, my revolver unwavering. The pursuing carriage struggles to follow, its wider frame catching on the brambles. But a sharp crack splits the air a rifle shot, grazing the cart's edge. Wood splinters fly, and the driver ducks, cursing. Holmes, we can't outrun them, I shout. Holmes, still clutching the box, pulls a small pistol from his coat, a precaution I hadn't noticed until now. Then we'll outwit them, he says, his voice steady as steel. He scans the path, his eyes locking on a low stone bridge ahead, spanning a narrow stream. Watson, when we reach the bridge, be ready to jump, he says, his tone leaving no room for argument. I nod, my mind racing. Jump, with Stark in tow and enemies at our heels. But I've learned to trust Holmes' instincts, even when they seem mad. Hatherley looks panicked, clutching the box and schematic as if they're his only lifeline. What about these? He asks. Holmes' eyes glint. Guard them with your life, Hatherley. They're why we're being hunted. As we approach the bridge, the pursuing carriage closes the gap. Another rifle shot ringing out, this one pinging off the cart's metal frame. The horse whinnies in panic, but the driver holds it steady, guided by Holmes' calm commands. Now, Holmes shouts as we cross the bridge. He leaps from the cart, landing in the soft mud beside the stream, and I follow, dragging Stark with me. Hatherley stumbles after us, the box and schematic clutched to his chest. The cart barrels on, the driver too terrified to stop, drawing the pursuers' attention. Holmes pulls us into the shadow of the bridge, the stream's icy water lapping at our boots. Quiet, he whispers, his pistol raised as the carriage thunders overhead, its wheels shaking the stone. The pursuers don't stop, their shouts fading as they chase the empty cart. Holmes waits, his breathing steady, until the sound is gone. Well played, he says, holstering his pistol. But we're not safe yet. He leads us along the stream, its banks muddy and treacherous, toward Afford Station. The mist is our ally now, cloaking us as we move. Stark stumbles, his bound hands making it hard to keep pace, but I keep him moving, my revolver at his back. Hatherley, despite his injury, shows a surprising resilience, his engineer's mind focused on the box in his hands. What are these components, Mr. Holmes? He asks again, his voice low. What could be worth all this? Holmes pauses, his eyes scanning the darkness. I suspect, he says, they're parts for a device of sabotage, perhaps a timing mechanism for an explosive, or a component for a machine meant to disrupt industry or warfare. The alloy's rarity and the press's precision suggest a purpose beyond mere profit. He taps the box. This will tell us more, but we need to reach London and Scotland Yard before Stark's allies regroup. I glance at Stark, whose silence is more unsettling than his threats. What does he know, and who is he protecting? We reach Ayford Station as the first drops of rain fall, the platform deserted except for a sleepy porter. Holmes secures tickets for the next train, his demeanor calm but urgent. As we board, I keep Stark close, my revolver hidden but ready. Hatherley sits clutching the box, his eyes haunted but resolute. Holmes gazes out the window, the box in his lap, his mind already racing toward the next step. The train whistle shrieks, and we pull away from Ayford, the misty countryside fading behind us. But I know this is only a temporary reprieve. Stark's allies are out there, and the contents of that box will draw them like moths to a flame. That's the end of chapter 6. With Holmes, Watson, and Hatherley escaping Blackthorn Hall but still hunted, the mysterious box holding secrets that could change everything. What's in Lil in that box? Who is Stark working for? Share your theories in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 7 of Sherlock Holmes and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb. The mystery is heating up, and we're headed back to London. The train to London rattles through the misty Berkshire countryside, its wheels clacking rhythmically against the tracks, a steady pulse that contrasts with the tension gripping our small compartment. I, Dr. John Watson, sit by the window, my revolver concealed beneath my coat but ready, my eyes fixed on Colonel Lysander Stark, who sits bound and silent across from me. His gaunt face is impassive, his flint-grey eyes staring straight ahead, betraying nothing, not fear, not anger, only a chilling resolve that unsettles me more than any threat. Victor Hatherley, the young engineer, huddles in the corner, clutching the locked box of mysterious metal components and the crumpled schematic of the hydraulic press, his bandaged hand trembling slightly. His face is pale, etched with exhaustion, and the lingering shock of his ordeal. But there's a spark of determination in his eyes, as if the weight of the box has given him purpose. Sherlock Holmes sits beside me, his lean frame relaxed but alert, the small, intricately etched box resting on his lap like a trophy of war. The air in the compartment smells of damp wool and coal smoke, and the faint patter of rain against the window adds to the sense of urgency that hangs over us. Holmes' single quotes fingers tap a restless rhythm on the box, his sharp eyes flicking between Stark and the passing landscape, where fields and hedgerows blur into a grey haze. "We're not out of danger yet, Watson," he says, his voice low, barely audible over the train's rumble. Stark's allies are resourceful, and they know we have what they need. I nod, my grip tightening on the revolver's handle. The escape from Blackthorn Hall was a narrow one, and the memory of the pursuing carriage, its rifle shots splitting the air, is still fresh. Hatherley shifts uneasily, his voice hoarse as he speaks. "Mr. Holmes, what are these components? You said they might be for a weapon, but what kind?" Holmes' eyes narrow, and he leans forward, his tone measured but grave. "The alloy in these components, likely a blend of platinum and a rarer metal, perhaps osmium or iridium suggests, a purpose requiring extreme durability and precision. A detonator for an explosive device, perhaps, or a critical part of a machine designed for sabotage. The press's molds were too intricate for mere coinage. We're dealing with something far larger, possibly a threat to national security." Eyes widen, and he clutches the box tighter, as if its weight anchors him against the growing enormity of the situation. National security, he whispers. But I'm just an engineer. I only wanted to fix a press. Holmes' smile is faint but sympathetic. Fate has a way of choosing its players. Mr. Hatherley, your thumb was the price of stumbling into a game of high stakes. Stark shifts slightly, and I press the revolver closer, my voice sharp. Don't move, Colonel. His lips curl into a faint sneer, but he says nothing, his silence a weapon in itself. I can't shake the feeling that he's waiting, biding. His time for an opportunity we haven't yet seen. The train compartment is cramped, its wooden benches worn, its gas lamps casting a sickly yellow glow. Outside, the rain intensifies, streaking the windows and obscuring the countryside. Holmes opens the locked box, carefully lifting one of the small, gleaming components to examine it under the lamp's light. Its surface is etched with fine grooves, almost like a miniature circuit, though such technology is barely in its infancy in 1889. Remarkable, Holmes murmurs, turning the piece over in his fingers. This is no ordinary craftsmanship. The precision suggests a purpose beyond industry perhaps. Military, or even scientific. He glances at Hatherley. Your press, Mr. Hatherley, was there anything unusual about its power source? A battery, perhaps, or an electrical component? Hatherley frowns, his engineer's mind sifting through memories. There was a cable, he says slowly, running from the press to a box in the wall. I thought it was for the gaslights, but it was thicker, insulated. Could it have been electrical? Holmes' eyes gleam. Very likely. This operation is more advanced than I first thought. He slips the component back into the box and locks it, his expression darkening. We need to get this to Scotland. Yardan to an expert in metallurgy. If these components are what I suspect, time is not on our side. A sudden jolt shakes the train, and the lights flicker, plunging us into momentary darkness. Hatherley gasps, and I tighten my grip on Stark. My heart racing, the train slows, its wheels screeching as if braking hard. Holmes is on his feet in an instant, his pistol drawn, his eyes scanning the compartment door. Stay calm, he says, his voice steady. This is no ordinary delay. I peer out the window, but the rain and mist obscure everything beyond. A few feet, a low whistle sounds from the engine, followed by the creak of the compartment door opening. A conductor, his face pale and slick with rain, steps in. Trouble on the line, sirs, he says, his voice trembling. Bridge ahead's blocked looks like a deliberate barricade. Holmes' eyes narrow to slits. Deliberate, you say? He strides to the door, peering into the corridor, where passengers are muttering in confusion. Watson, keep Stark. Secure, Hatherley, guard the box. I nod, my revolver steady, while Hatherley clutches the box like a lifeline. Holmes steps into the corridor, his pistol hidden but ready, and I hear him questioning the conductor in low, urgent tones. Moments later, he returns, his expression grim. A pile of timber and stones across the tracks, he says, too precise. For an accident, Stark's allies are closer than we thought. The train grinds to a halt, the compartment swaying slightly. Outside, I catch the flicker of lanterns moving through the mist-free. Maybe for figures, their silhouettes blurred but purposeful. Holmes, I say, my voice tight, we're sitting ducks here. He nods, his mind racing. We need to move. The next station is a mile ahead, too far to walk with Stark in tow, but we can't stay here. He turns to the conductor. Is there a way off this train without being seen? The conductor, nervous but cooperative, points to a service hatch at the rear of the carriage. Leads to the undercarriage, he says. But it's dangerous, sirs, especially in this weather. Holmes doesn't hesitate. Dangerous is better than dead, he says, motioning for us to follow. I haul Stark to his feet, my revolver at his back, while Hatherley scrambles after us, the box and schematic tucked under his arm. We slip into the corridor, the conductor leading us to the Harcher narrow panel, barely wide enough for a man. Holmes goes first, his agility defying the cramped space, and I push Stark through, ignoring his muttered curses. Hatherley follows, his movements clumsy but determined. We drop into the muddy gravel beneath the train, the rain soaking us instantly, the cold biting through my coat. The lanterns in the distance are closer now, their light cutting through the mist, accompanied by the sound of boots crunching on gravel. Holmes leads us along the tracks, keeping low, the train's bulk shielding us from view. The rain masks our footsteps, but it also makes the ground treacherous, and Stark stumbles, forcing me to yank him upright. Hatherley's breath comes in short gasps, but he keeps pace, his engineer's resilience shining through. Holmes pauses, his eyes scanning the terrain. There's a siding half a mile ahead, he says. If we can reach it, we might find a maintenance shed or another train. The lanterns are closing in, their bearers shouting in that same foreign tongue we heard at Blackthorn Holgerman. I'm certain now. Holmes' theory of international intrigue feels more real by the second. We move faster, the rain pelting us, the box in Holmes' hands a heavy reminder of why we're being hunted. Stark's silence is deafening, his defiance a constant threat. As we near the siding, a shot rings out, the bullet kicking up mud just feet away. Down, Holmes hisses, pulling us behind a stack of railway ties. The chase is far from over, and the secrets in that box are pulling us deeper into danger. That's the end of Chapter 7, with Holmes, Watson, and Hatherley fleeing a sabotaged train, pursued by enemies determined to reclaim the mysterious components. What's waiting at the siding? Will Stark's allies catch us? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 8 of Sherlock. Holmes and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb. The danger is closing in, and the truth is just out of reach. The rain hammers down, turning the gravel beneath the railway tracks into a treacherous slurry as we crouch behind a stack of sodden railway ties. The air is cold and heavy with the smell of wet earth and creosote, the mist swirling around us like a living shroud. I, Dr. John Watson, keep my revolver pressed against Colonel Lysander Stark's back, his bound hands slick with rain, his gaunt face set in a mask of silent defiance. Victor Hatherley, the young engineer, clings to the locked box of mysterious metal components and the crumpled schematic of the hydraulic press, his bandaged hand trembling but his grip resolute. Sherlock Holmes kneels beside us, his lean frame tense, his sharp eyes scanning the misty darkness for the lanterns of our pursuers. The crack of a rifle shot still echoes in my ears, the bullet that grazed the mud a stark reminder that Stark's allies are closing in. The train we abandoned looms behind us, its silhouette fading into the fog, and the siding Holmes mentioned a half-mile ahead feels like a distant hope. The stakes have never been higher, and the weight of the box in Hatherley's arms seems to pull us deeper into a web of danger. Holmes' voice cuts through the rain, low and urgent. We can't stay here, Watson. The siding is our best chance. There may be a shed or a signal box where we can take cover. He glances at Stark, whose flint-grey eyes glint with a knowing malice, as if he's counting on his allies to find us. Keep him close, Holmes adds, nodding at the colonel. I tighten my grip, my revolver steady despite the chill seeping into my bones. Hatherley, soaked to the skin, looks at Holmes with a mix of fear and trust. What if they're waiting for us? He asks, his voice barely audible over the rain's relentless patter. Holmes' smile is thin but resolute. Then we'll be ready for them, Mr. Hatherley. Stay sharp. We move, keeping low, the railway ties offering scant cover as we scramble along the tracks. The mud sucks at our boots, slowing us, and Stark stumbles deliberately, forcing me to yank him upright. His silence is maddening, a constant reminder that he knows more than he's letting on. The lanterns behind us bob closer, their light cutting through the mist, accompanied by the crunch of boots and muffled shouts in German. Holmes leads with his usual unerring instinct, his pistol in one hand, the etched box tucked under his arm. The rain blurs my vision, but I catch glimpses of the siding ahead, a cluster of rusted rails and a small, squat building, likely a maintenance shed. It's our only chance to regroup before our pursuers overtake us. As we near the siding, the ground levels out, and the shed comes into view, its wooden walls weathered but intact, its door slightly ajar. Holmes signals for us to slow, his eyes scanning the shadows for signs of an ambush. The lanterns are closer now, their bearers no more than 100 yards behind, and I hear the click of a rifle being cocked. Holmes, I whisper, my heart pounding. They're almost on us. He nods, his expression calm but focused. Into the shed, quickly. Watson, cover the door. Hatherley, guard the box. We slip inside, the shed's interior dark and cramped, smelling of oil, rust, and damp wood. Tools and coils of rope line the walls, and a single grimy window lets in a sliver of grey light. I push Stark into a corner, my revolver trained on him, while Hatherley sets the box and schematic on a workbench, his eyes darting nervously too. The door, Holmes, moves to the window, peering out, his pistol ready. 3 men, he murmurs, armed and organized. They know we're here. He turns to the shed's contents, his mind racing for a plan. Watson, check for another exit. Hatherley, help me barricade the door. I nod, shoving Stark against the wall with a warning glare before searching the shed's rear. A small trapdoor, half hidden under a pile of sacks, leads to a crawl space beneath the shed, narrow, but a possible escape. Holmes, there's a trapdoor, I call, keeping my voice low. He glances over, his eyes lighting up. Good man, we may need it. Hatherley and Holmes drag a heavy crate across the door, its wood splintering under the strain. The shouts outside grow louder, and a bullet shatters the window, glass spraying across the floor. Hatherley ducks, clutching the box, while Stark lets out a low chuckle, the first sound he's made since the train. You're trapped, Holmes, he says, his German accent thick with menace. My associates are thorough. Holmes ignores him, his hands moving swiftly to rig a makeshift defense, a coil of rope tied to the crate, designed to slow any intruders. Your associates are predictable, Colonel, he replies, his voice icy. And predictability is a weakness. Before Stark can respond, the door shudders under a heavy blow, the wood cracking as someone rams it from outside. I take position by the trapdoor, revolver raised, ready to cover our escape. Holmes grabs a rusty crowbar from the workbench, handing it to Hatherley. If it comes to it, use this, he says. Hatherley nods, his face pale but resolute, the engineer's courage shining through his fear. Another blow hits the door, and the crate shifts, splinters flying. Holmes moves to the trapdoor, lifting it with a grunt, revealing a dark, muddy crawl space. Watson, you first with Stark. Hatherley, follow. I'll cover the rear. I push. Stark toward the trapdoor, ignoring his muttered curses, and crawl through, the damp earth cold against my hands. Stark follows, his bound hands making it awkward, and I keep my revolver close, ready for any trick. Hatherley scrambles after, clutching the box and schematic, his breath ragged. Holmes is last, pulling the trapdoor shut behind us just as the shed door gives way with a crash. The crawl space is tight, the air thick with the smell of mold and wet soil, but it leads to a ditch outside the shed, hidden by overgrown weeds. We emerge into the rain, the mist cloaking us as we crouch in the ditch, the shouts of our pursuers echoing from the shed. Holmes peers over the edge, his pistol ready. They'll search the shed first, he whispers. We move now to the station. The Ayford station platform is a quarter-mile away, its faint lights barely visible through the fog. We crawl along the ditch, the mud soaking our clothes. Stark's silence a constant weight. The box in Hatherley's arms feels heavier with every step, its contents a magnet for danger. As we near the station, a whistle pierces the aerotrain approaching, our chance to escape. But the lanterns are moving again, their bearers realizing we've slipped their grasp. Holmes' eyes glint with determination. We board that train, he says, or we face them here. We break from the ditch, sprinting toward the platform, the rain stinging our faces. The train's headlamp cuts through the mist, its whistle growing louder. Stark stumbles, and I haul him up, my revolver at his back. Hatherley runs with surprising speed, the box clutched to his chest. The lanterns are behind us, their bearers shouting, a shot ringing out but missing wide. We reach the platform as the train slows, its doors opening. Holmes leaps aboard, pulling Hatherley with him, and I shove Stark into a compartment, my heart pounding as I follow. The train lurches forward just as our pursuers reach the platform, their shouts fading as we pull away. Inside the compartment we collapse, soaked and breathless, the box safe in Holmes' hands. Stark's eyes burn with fury, but he remains silent, his secrets locked as tightly as the box. The train carries us toward London, but I know this is only a momentary reprieve. The components, the press, the pursuit, they all point to a conspiracy larger than we imagined. That's the end of Chapter 8, with Holmes, Watson, and Hatherley barely escaping an ambush, the mysterious box still in their possession. What's next for our trio? Will they reach Scotland Yard safely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 9 of Sherlock Holmes and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb. The truth is closer, but the danger is far from over. The train to London sways through the rain-soaked night, its rhythmic clatter a fragile barrier against the tension gripping our compartment. The air inside is damp and heavy, smelling of wet wool and the faint metallic taint that clings to the locked box in Sherlock Holmes' hands. I, Dr. John Watson, sit with my revolver resting on my knee, its weight a constant reminder of the danger we've only narrowly escaped. Colonel Lysander Stark, bound and silent, occupies the seat across from me, his gaunt face illuminated by the flickering gas lamp overhead, his flint-grey eyes fixed on some distant point, radiating a cold defiance that chills me more than the rain soaking my clothes. Victor Hatherley, the young engineer, slumps beside me, his bandaged hand clutching the crumpled schematic of the hydraulic press. The etched box of mysterious components now safely in Holmes' possession. His face is pale, etched with exhaustion, but his eyes burn with a stubborn resolve, as if the ordeal has forged something unbreakable within him. Holmes, ever the calm center of the storm, sits by the window, his sharp profile etched against the rain-streaked glass, his fingers tracing the intricate designs on the box as if they might whisper their secrets. The train's motion is a lifeline, carrying us closer to London and the safety of Scotland Yard, but the memory of our pursuers, lanterns, and rifle shots at the siding keeps my nerves taut. Holmes' voice breaks the silence, low and measured. "We're not out of the woods yet, Watson," he says, his eyes scanning the compartment as if expecting an enemy to emerge from the shadows. Stark's allies are relentless, and this box, he taps the metal surface, is their prize. We must assume they have eyes in London. I nod, my grip tightening on the revolver. Hatherley shifts, his voice hoarse but steady. "Mr. Holmes, what are these components? You mentioned sabotage, but for what purpose?" Holmes' eyes narrow, his mind clearly racing ahead. The alloy and the precision suggest a device of immense consequence, possibly a timing mechanism for an explosive, or a component for a weapon of unprecedented design. The secrecy, the violence, the foreign operatives all point to a conspiracy with international stakes. Stark's lips curl into a faint sneer, the first crack in his silence. "You're grasping at shadows, Holmes," he says, his German accent sharp as a blade. "You have no proof." Holmes' smile is cold, his gaze unwavering. "Proof is in this box, Colonel, and I intend to unlock its secrets." He turns to Hatherley. "Your schematic, Mr. Hatherley May. I see it again." Hatherley hands over the crumpled paper, and Holmes spreads it on his lap, his eyes tracing the spidery annotations. "The press's modifications," he murmurs, "are designed for extreme precision, far beyond industrial needs. These molds," he pauses, his finger tapping a series of cryptic symbols. "They're coded, possibly in a cipher. This is no ordinary operation." The train slows as we approach London, the distant glow of gaslights piercing the mist. The compartment feels smaller, the air heavier, as if the weight of the mystery presses against us. I glance at Stark, whose silence has returned, his eyes glinting with calculation. "What are you hiding, Colonel?" I demand, my voice sharper than intended. He meets my gaze, his expression unreadable. "You'll find death before you find answers, Doctor," he says softly, and the chill in his words sends a shiver down my spine. Holmes snorts, unfazed. "Threats are the refuge of a cornered man, Colonel, and you are very much cornered." As the train pulls into Paddington Station, the platform is a chaotic swirl of steam, shouting porters and passengers bundled against the rain. Holmes stands, tucking the box under his coat, his pistol hidden but ready. Watson, keep Stark close. Hatherley, stay between us. We move quickly to Scotland Yard. I haul Stark to his feet, my revolver concealed but pressed against his side. Hatherley follows, the schematic tucked into his coat, his eyes scanning the crowd for threats. The platform is crowded, but Holmes' keen senses pick out details. I miss a man lingering too long by a newsstand, his hat pulled low. A woman in a dark cloak watching us from a distance. "We're being followed," Holmes murmurs, his voice barely audible over the station's din. Stay alert. We weave through the crowd, the rain now a steady drizzle, the gaslights casting long shadows across the wet cobblestones. Holmes leads us to a hansom cab, its driver hunched under a dripping oilskin. Scotland Yard, and make haste, Holmes. Orders, climbing in with Hatherley. I push Stark inside, my revolver still at his back, and the cab lurches forward, the horse's hooves clattering on the stones. The city unfolds around us, narrow streets lined with soot-stained buildings. The air thick with coal smoke and the cries of street vendors. But the sense of pursuit lingers, and I catch glimpses of figures moving parallel to us, their forms blurred by the rain. Holmes leans forward, his voice low. Watson, if we're attacked, your priority is the box. Hatherley guard the schematic. Stark's allies will aim to reclaim both. I nod, my military instincts kicking in, my eyes scanning the streets. Hatherley clutches the schematic, his face set with determination. I won't let them have it, he says, his voice stronger. Now, as if the weight of the mystery has given him purpose. Stark remains silent, but his eyes flicker toward the window, as if expecting rescue. The cab turns onto a quieter street, the gaslights fewer, the shadows deeper. My heart pounds as I notice a second cab following us, its wheels rattling ominously. Without warning, a sharp crack splits the air, a gunshot, the bullet grazing the cab's side. The driver curses, urging the horse faster, and Holmes draws his pistol, his eyes scanning the street. They're bold, he says, his voice calm but edged with excitement. Watson, be ready. I lean out the window, revolver raised, and see two figures in the pursuing cab, one aiming a rifle, the other shouting orders in German. Another shot rings out, shattering the cab's rear window, and Hatherley ducks, shielding the schematic. Hold on, Holmes shouts, banging on the cab's roof. The driver veers into a narrow alley, the cab scraping against brick walls. But the pursuing vehicle follows, its horses snorting with effort. Holmes leans out, firing a single shot that hits the pursuing cab's wheel, sending it swerving. The driver recovers, but we gain precious seconds, the alley opening onto a broader street near the Thames. The river's stench mingles with the rain, and Scotland Yard's imposing facade looms ahead. Almost there, Holmes says, his eyes gleaming, but the pursuing cab is relentless, closing the gap as we near our destination. A third shot grazes the horse, which rears in panic, nearly overturning the cab. I fire back, my bullet hitting the pursuer's lantern, plunging them into darkness. The cab slows, and we pull ahead, the driver whipping the horse into a final sprint. We reach Scotland Yard, tumbling out of the cab in a rush. Holmes leads the way, the box under his arm, while I drag Stark, my revolver steady. Hatherley follows, the schematic safe in his coat. The pursuing cab vanishes into the rain, but I know they're not gone for good. We burst into the yard, where Inspector Lestrade, roused from his desk, greets us with a mix of irritation and curiosity. Holmes, what's this about? He demands, eyeing Stark's bound hands and Hatherley's pale face. Holmes holds up the box, his voice firm. A matter of national importance, Lestrade. We need your best men and a metallurgist now. That's the end of Chapter 9, with Holmes, Watson, and Hatherley reaching Scotland Yard, but the danger still hot on their heels. What will Lestrade make of the box? Can Holmes unravel the conspiracy before Stark's allies strike again? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 10 of Sherlock Holmes and the Engineer's Vanishing Thumb. The final chapter is coming, and the truth is within reach. The gaslit corridors of Scotland Yard buzz with urgency as we burst through the doors. Rain-soaked and breathless, the weight of our perilous journey from Blackthorn Hall pressing heavily upon us. I, Dr. John Watson, keep my revolver trained on Colonel Lysander Stark, his bound hands and defiant silence, a constant reminder of the danger we've only narrowly escaped. His gaunt face, illuminated by the flickering lamps, betrays nothing, though his flint-grey eyes glint with a malice that sets my nerves on edge. Victor Hatherley, the young engineer, clutches the crumpled schematic of the hydraulic press, his bandaged hand trembling but his resolve unbroken. The memory of his severed thumb a silent testament to the stakes of this case. Sherlock Holmes leads the way, the intricately etched box containing the mysterious metal components tucked securely under his arm, his lean frame radiating purpose as he strides toward Inspector Lestrade's office. The air is thick with the smell of wet wool, ink, and a faint temps of coal smoke from the yard's fireplaces, and the distant clatter of typewriters underscores the gravity of the moment. We've reached safety, but the pursuit through the rainy streets of London and the rifle shots that nearly ended us linger like ghosts, warning us that the conspiracy we've uncovered is far from resolved. Lestrade, roused from his late night paperwork, looks up from his cluttered desk, his ferret-like face creasing with irritation as he takes in our dishevelled appearance. "Holmes, what in blazes is this?" he demands, eyeing Stark's bound wrists and Hatherley's pale, haunted expression. Holmes sets the box on the desk with a deliberate thud, his voice calm but commanding. "A matter of national importance, Lestrade. This box contains components for a device that could threaten the security of the Empire and beyond. We need your best men, a secure room, and a metallurgist, immediately." Lestrade's eyebrows shoot up, but he knows better than to doubt Holmes' urgency. He barks orders to a constable, who scurries off to summon reinforcements, and gestures for us to follow him to a private interrogation room. The room is Spartan, its walls bare except for a single gas lamp casting a harsh glow over a scarred wooden table and chairs. I push Stark into a seat, my revolver still close, while Hatherley places the schematic beside the box, his eyes darting nervously to the door. Lestrade locks it behind us, his expression a mix of skepticism and curiosity. "Explain yourself, Holmes," he says, folding his arms. "What's this about a threat to the Empire?" Holmes opens the box, revealing the dozen small, gleaming components, their etched surfaces catching the light like miniature works of art. "These," he says, holding one up, "are parts of a precision mechanism, likely a detonator or timing device for a weapon of extraordinary power. The alloy is a rare blend, possibly platinum and osmium, designed for durability under extreme conditions. The hydraulic press at Blackthorn Hall was forging these components with a precision far beyond industrial needs." Hatherley nods, his engineer's mind piecing together the puzzle. "The press's molds," he says, pointing to the schematic, "were designed for intricate shapes, smaller than a shilling, and the power source it was electrical, not mechanical. I saw a cable, insulated, leading to a control box." Holmes' eyes gleam with approval. "Exactly, Mr. Hatherley. This operation was no mere counterfeiting scheme. The secrecy, the violence, the foreign operatives," he glances at Stark, "suggest a plot with international ramifications, possibly a weapon for sabotage or espionage, funded by a foreign power." Stark's lips curl into a sneer, but he remains silent, his eyes fixed on the box, Lestrade leans forward, his skepticism fading. A weapon? For whom? Holmes' expression darkens. That's what we must uncover. Colonel Stark here is no ordinary criminal. His German accent, his resources, his willingness to kill all point to a larger network. He turns to Stark, his voice cold. Who are you working for, Colonel? A foreign government, a syndicate. Speak, and you may save yourself a noose. Stark's sneer widens, but his silence holds. A wall of defiance that only fuels Holmes' determination. A knock at the door interrupts us, and a constable ushers in Dr. Evelyn Marwood, a bespectacled metallurgist from the Royal Arsenal, her grey hair pulled into a tight bun, her expression one of brisk efficiency. Holmes hands her the box, explaining its contents, and she examines the components with a jeweler's loupe, her brow furrowing. Remarkable, she murmurs after a long pause. This alloy is indeed platinum and osmium, with traces of a rare earth metal, possibly cerium. It's designed for extreme heat and pressure resistance, ideal for a detonator or a component in a high explosive device. She looks up, her eyes grave. These could be part of a bomb, small, portable, but devastatingly powerful. The precision suggests military-grade engineering. Lestrade's face pales, and he turns to Stark. Talk, man, who's behind this? Stark's silence breaks at last, his voice low and venomous. You're too late, Holmes. The wheels are in motion. You found a piece, but the machine is already turning. Holmes' eyes narrow, and he leans closer, his voice like a blade. Then we'll dismantle it, Colonel, piece by piece. He turns to Lestrade. Lock him in a cell, maximum security, and send word to the Home Office. This is bigger than we thought. As Stark is led away, his wrists still bound, Holmes examines the schematic again, his fingers tracing the coded symbols. These annotations, he says, are in a cipher, likely a substitution code used by military operatives. I'll need time to crack it, but it may reveal the intended use of these components. He glances at Hatherley, who's been silent, absorbing the gravity of the situation. You've done well, Mr. Hatherley. Your courage has brought us this. Far Hatherley manages a weak smile, his bandaged hand a stark reminder of his sacrifice. I just want to know why, he says softly. Why my thumb? Why me? Holmes' expression softens, a rare moment of empathy. You were a loose end, Mr. Hatherley. A man of your skills saw too much, and they couldn't risk you talking. But you've turned their mistake into their downfall. He turns to Lestrade. We need to trace Stark's contacts. His allies are still out there, and they'll come for the box. Lestrade nods. Already dispatching constables to investigate Blackthorn Hall and track the pursuers from the train, as dawn breaks over London. Painting the sky a pale grey, we step out of Scotland Yard, the rain finally easing. Holmes carries the box, his mind already racing toward the next step, ciphering the schematic, identifying Stark's masters, and stopping the conspiracy before it can strike. Hatherley, exhausted but resolute, vows to assist, his engineer's expertise now vital to the case. I feel the weight of the past days, the terror of Blackthorn Hall. The chase through the countryside, the gunfire in the street sand, know that this victory is only the beginning. The components, the press, the cipher, they're pieces of a puzzle that could shake the foundations of the empire. Holmes pauses on the steps, his eyes scanning the waking city. This is not the end, Watson, he says, his voice quiet but firm, but it's a start. The box in his hands feels like a ticking bomb, its secrets waiting to be unlocked. For now, we've stopped Stark, but his cryptic warning, "The machine is already turning," echoes in my mind. A promise of more danger to come. That's the end of chapter 10, and the conclusion of Sherlock Holmes and the engineer's Vanishing. We've uncovered a conspiracy, but the full truth remains just out of reach. What do you think the cipher will reveal? Could there be a sequel to this adventure? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you've enjoyed this journey through Victorian intrigue, hit that like button and subscribe for more thrilling stories. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for what Holmes and Watson tackle next.